Order this regular council meeting for Monday, January 27th, 2020. Move to adopt the agenda as presented. Second, Councillor Anderson. Are there any amendments? No? Seeing none on the question that we adopt the agenda as presented, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Monday, January 13th, 2020. Are there any errors or omissions? Move then to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Monday, January 13th, 2020. Second, Councillor Davenport. Thank you. Any discussion on the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Minutes of the special meeting of council held Wednesday, January 22nd. Are there any errors or omissions? Move to adopt the...
Oh, sorry, no.
Oh,
I'm glad
jumping
jumping
ahead.
ahead of your reports.
Okay, so move to adopt the minutes of the special meeting of council held Wednesday, January 22nd. Second, Councillor Toohey, thank you very much. I wasn't expecting that at all. On the question, then all those in favor, opposed, carried. We have no delegations this evening. We move on to item 5.1, RAPS, request for funding increase for the Canada Day funding. I am going to declare myself in conflict of interest and recuse myself, so Deputy Mayor Anstead, you have the chair.
Your Worship, would you state for the record the reason you're recusing yourself?
Oh, because I'm on the board of directors of the Winding Rivers Arts and Performance Society.
Greg.
So this is for here, okay. So I can look for count. I'm just gonna ask council's take on all this. Oh, looking for a motion. Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I think this is a good thing for the community, and with the rising cost, of course, everyone, suffers from rising costs. So I think that we should give them the 10% increase, but the annual cost of living increase going forward, that's something I would like to revisit each year if there's a request for an increase.
For what?
Yeah. So, okay, I'll put it into a motion that we grant Winding Rivers Arts and Performance Society the 10% increase for 2020. Second?
All those in favor? Discussion? Discussion?
Just wondering if the providing free access to the swimming pool is a separate motion, or is that included in the motion?
Probably should do the second motion. We can include it, I think, that's the Deputy Corporate Officer wants to say something.
Yes.
If I may, Your Worship, the village always donates the, if it's a standing thing, we always provide free
Okay.
swimming use of the swimming at the pool on Canada Day.
Great, thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Carried.
Carried.
Well done. Well done.
We've lost a mayor. Thank you very much. All right.
If it's requested.
Thank you. We move on to item 5.2, Ashcroft Barn Dance Facility Use Request.
Narrow it as I am on the committee and also liquor license provider for this event. I shall recruit myself and go and take my village Ashcroft Village coffee.
Thank you very much. Alright, so we, Councillor Anderson.
So I would like to make a motion that we support this. It's an awesome event that's occurring, so my motion would be that, that the arena rental fees be waived.
All right, for August, the barn dance on August 14th, I'll second that. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Toohey?
Thank you, Mayor. Would that include the 13th, 14th, and 15th? As it would be for setup, the event, and for cleanup.
Right.
So we would probably want,
Okay, so for the 3 days, August 13th to 15th. So waive the rental fee for all 3 days. Okay.
yes.
The community stage.
Oh, and the community stage, right. All right.
Your worship, if I can comment, just so you know that with the standard of the arena opening, just like through other areas, there's an opening and closing required for overtime to open and close for different events and stuff at the arena, so that has to be in there for your consideration of your decision.
Right. Has anyone approached you to give any indication of timetable when they would be looking to get in and out of the building?
At this point in time, no.
No. What usually happens in an event of something that goes into the evening, the doors open at 6:30, ends at midnight?
Usually, your worship, they'll, depending on what time, there will be somebody that goes in there for opening, which will be 5 o'clock or whatever, so they can prep, and then when they figure at 12:30 the event is opening, they figure, say 1:30 that they'll be cleaned up, then there's another employee that'll go in and close up, so there'll be 2 call-outs.
2 call-outs. And what about on the evening of the event itself? What happens when everyone's gone home? Who locks up? Is it the event organizers, or it's someone from the village crew has to go?
Yes.
Councillor Jude?
Thank you. Is that policy or is that law or what is, like we can't give a key to them? How does that work? Why? Like,
Due to the safety protocol, our arena, our ice plant is shut down, but it is ammonia for around there and cause, and also we have an alarm system that we don't give our codes and stuff
Okay.
for.
Thank you.
So it's the safety and security of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there an idea of what this would be, what the cost would be to the village over and above the rental fee?
Each call out is $120. $120 each call out.
Okay, make it.
And how many would there be? Like 2 per day?
Depending on if they're doing the setup during working hours, then it's already open, but if we have to call somebody in the evening or outside working hours, then yes.
Okay.
So they are asking that the rental fees be waived, but the rental fees do not include the call-out fees, correct?
Your worship,
Skippable.
as per the bylaw, which sets fees and charges bylaw, I believe there's a call in rates in there as well. So it's kind of like rental. You anticipate that, so it's part of that.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mayor Roden. My motion was for the, not for the call-outs. If there's a fee attached with that, I think there's a responsibility that should be paid for. But for the actual rental of the arena my motion was to waive that. And I do have a question regarding cleanup. Is there a deposit taken in situations like this, even though we would be possibly waiving the fee for the rental? Would there be a deposit to ensure that cleanup is done properly, that would be refunded. What is the normal procedure?
I don't have the fees and charges bylaw in front of me, but we usually take a deposit. We'll also make sure the insurance is adequate,
Yeah.
and then we'll also then do the charging for the amount of time, opening and closing. So, yeah, as a usual business, we will take a deposit.
So with respect to that, then feel that, you know, there's still a responsibility toward those type of housekeeping items, but the, like I say, the motion that I put forth would be to provide the premises, the arena rental, free of charge.
And that call-outs would be the responsibility of the organizers.
Yes, as well as putting a deposit down.
Because August 13th is a Thursday, so presumably they do their work in regular hours, then there would be at least one call-out on August 14th, because if it's not ending till 12:30 in the morning, that's one call-out. And then Saturday the 15th, that would be 2 call-outs, correct? 3 altogether, and unless there's anything comes up that's emergent. So that would be $360 for the organizers for call-outs. So right now we have a motion on the floor to waive the arena rental only. That would leave the organizers responsible for paying approximately $360 in call-out fees plus providing a deposit.
Did we second that?
Yes, it was
Okay.
seconded, I believe, was it?
Seconded, recorded.
I thought I seconded it, I'm sorry. Okay.
That was
Hmm?
I thought you seconded the previous.
Oh, this is under.
No, I didn't do the previous one because I was recused myself on that one.
Sorry.
Oh.
I hope I didn't second it. I hear it.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
Okay, maybe.
yes, I did second it.
Okay.
I would like to propose an amendment, so the discussion would be on the amendment if it passes, that we waive the rental fee and we waive up to 3 call-out fees for the event. Any more call-out fees than that would be the responsibility of the organizers, but we would pay, the village would absorb the cost of up to 3 call-outs. They would still have to provide a damage deposit and of course do an adequate cleanup. So on the amendment, do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Anston. So the discussion is on the amendment, which is to add up to $360 in call-out fees to the amount that we will be granting the organization. Anything above 3 call-outs, then they would have to pay any additional. Is there any discussion on the amendment? No? All right, seeing no, so we're voting on the amendment, which is to add 3 call-outs to the amount that we are waiving. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Carried. Would you like to vote recorded? So we are back to the motion now, which is that we will waive the rental fee for the Drylands Arena for the barn dance, and we will waive up to 3 call-outs. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? All right, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Oh, sure, and Brian's wearing the quiet shoes. What?
I know, it's me, it's 300.
All right, we move on to item 5.3, Cache Creek Village of, request for on-demand transit hours, that's page 13. And I would like to make a motion that we ask staff for a report, or we ask for a report back to council regarding what a potential new schedule giving some of our on-demand hours would look like.
I would say.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Is there any discussion on this? CEO Yancy?
If I could just let council know, the on-demand hours are currently undersubscribed. So the process of coming up with a new schedule is, needs to be done at BC Transit because it's a process of figuring out where hours can be available depending on where a bus is at any given time. But there is some flexibility in that particular budget of hours to do some playing with that schedule. So.
And it is much easier to take existing hours and reallocate them than it is to add an additional service or additional hours to. When I say it's much easier and faster, it's 6 months as opposed to 18, but it's still faster. So is there any discussion on the motion? No? On the question then, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.4, Curling Club, request to establish a working group, page 14. I would like to make a motion that we schedule a meeting with the Ashcroft Curling Club. Councillor Davenport, thank you very much. Any discussion on this question? On the question, then all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Operation Lifesaver. Item 5.0, so yes, 5.5, Operation Lifesaver, share rail safety information. Extremely pertinent in regards to the near miss we had recently. What is council's pleasure on this item? Councillor Davenport.
You receive and file?
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Tui, thank you. Is it possible to receive and file while taking some of the information and putting it in a village newsletter, or does that require a separate motion? So I'd like to receive and file, but I would like to have some of the information as suggested in paragraph 4 put into the village newsletter. And also something perhaps for council to think about would be having Operation Lifesaver or Sea and Rail Police come and do a public community presentation about rail safety, in light of concerns about rail safety at the Ashcroft Terminal and also the incident on December 19th. Just for consideration.
Did both see him?
Community forum about 4 years ago, someone from Sea and Police came out and gave a safety talk to members of the public. Okay. I'm part of Operation Lifesaver as well. All right, any further discussion? No? On the question, then all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item number 5.6, NDIT 2020 Grant Writing Support Approval, page 16. What is council's pleasure on this? Councillor Anderson?
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
I think we do need to take action on this. Or no, we don't, we can just receive and file? All right, receive and file, do I have a second for that one? Councillor Anstett, thank you. And any discussion? Great to see this going ahead again. Last year easily surpassed all the targets, so that's great. All right, all on the question, all those in favor, opposed, carried. And information correspondence listing, January 27th, 2020. Councillor Tui.
I'll move that we receive and file.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that one? Councillor Anstett, thank you. Any discussion on any of the items? No. On the question then, all in favor, opposed, carried. Unfinished business, item 6.1, we have our motions list, pages 18 to 19. The status of various motions from council. I'd like to move to receive and file.
Second.
Councillor Anderson, thank you for seconding. Any discussion on any of the items on the list? Excellent, thank you very much. Nice to see all the complete. I gather even more will be ticked off for next time, so wonderful. So no discussion on any of the items? No? On the question, then all those in favor, opposed, carried. Bylaws, we move on, make sure I haven't forgotten anything, no. Bylaws, 8.1, council procedures bylaw, pages 20 to 55 in your agenda package. And I would like to move that the Village of Ashcroft give council procedure bylaw number 834/2020 a first reading by title only. Councillor Tui, I saw your hand first. All right, now it's my understanding that this bylaw is going to be looked at in 4 separate readings, not grouped together. So it will give us a chance for a fulsome discussion. So right now, obviously, if you've read it through, which I hope you have, if anything has caught your eye you'd like to discuss now, but there will be time for more discussion. You don't have to bring everything out now. There is a time to go back, go over it, reflect. So does anyone, having read it through, have any immediate thoughts, suggestions, questions, comments? Anything? One thing, just to mention it to you in case someone who happens to be deputy mayor at a given time reads it through and gets really nervous. Committee of the whole, the suggestion is that any committee of the whole meetings, such as the one we had preceding this meeting, be chaired by the deputy mayor, to give the deputy mayor an opportunity to chair a meeting. Because the chair might not always be here, not that I'm planning on going anywhere, but you never know. There are these things called holidays, I understand, which some people take. You never know. Mr. Anderson?
And also, I believe it's part 4, regarding electronically being Skyping into a meeting if you're absent. I don't see it listed there, but something to think about as well for absences.
It is here, it's on page 33, section 22.1.
Just refers to medical.
Now this is all open to discussion. There are some communities where there is absolutely no restriction on the number of times a given council member can electronically report into a meeting. There are councils like ours where currently we have no facility for that whatsoever. The opportunity to call into a meeting electronically could be open to abuse. So I believe the intent of this, and DCO Dick will correct me, is to prevent it being abused. Thank you. Now there are other ways. You can say, for example, a given council member can only take advantage of this up to 3 times in a calendar year. So there are various ways of restricting without just saying you can call in every single meeting, which has happened in some communities.
I'm aware of that. And I just brought it up because I would like it considered.
What?
To be able to attend, perhaps because there's no provision for it right now, except for under these 2 circumstances. So if a person's away on vacation, they can dial in, for example, into a council meeting.
That certainly we could consider that and discuss it. I do like the restriction of only having 1 member of council able to phone in electronically, because I've also seen that go disastrously wrong, where more than one is trying to call in. Councillor Tui.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I'm just wondering, it says a participate, so you would only need to participate if you needed a quorum, but would that mean that you couldn't just listen?
If you were to call in, you would be considered as,
Participating?
you would be
Okay.
voting, you have an opportunity to,
So you couldn't just,
you can't just put it on speakerphone and sit on the beach, no. No, sorry. No, you, and again, it's 2020 and the technology should be better than it is, but it is not, sadly. And I have seen it in more than one place not work well, and it is very awkward. It really disrupts the flow of the meeting quite badly. The person on the phone, and I have been in other circumstances, that person on the phone, it's very difficult to have a say. It's not like being able to put up your hand and then have the chair notice you. So I think trying to limit it as much as we can within reasonable limits is a good thing to do. But again, this is just a chance to kick things around and get thoughts out there, so great, thank you very much for coming. I will just point out that the proposed, or a proposal in this policy is that the questions from the public be put at the beginning of the meeting, before the meeting actually gets underway and anything is discussed, rather than at the end, as is our current policy. There are pros and cons. Cache Creek does theirs at the end, Clinton does theirs at the beginning. So the pro to having it at the beginning is that members of the public who are in the gallery are able to comment on something in that evening's agenda, which might not have occurred to council. It might give council pause for thought or some new information to consider. The con is that they cannot then at the end of the meeting comment on anything that was discussed or decided upon. Having it at the end, just reverse those pros and cons and you get the exact opposite. So really the suggestion has been made that we move it to the front. Again, this is open for discussion. Councillor Anderson.
I actually like that idea, that it's moved to the front, because like you said, someone from the gallery, from the public might have a point, quite a good point that we may have not considered at that time. And that gives us an opportunity to represent the community and that voice, or voices, with respect to our decision making, rather than at the end when it's really too late.
Thank you. And I know at the even previous to my being on council, the question period here is a relatively new establishment, but there is nothing to stop people at the end of a meeting coming up to an individual council member and having a discussion once the gavels come down. No, and I've seen that happen many times in many different councils around in various places. People come up and have questions. So certainly that is still an option. We're not trying to stifle that. Councillor Toohey.
thank you, Mayor. So would that be a limited time? Because we wouldn't want,
It is limited now.
okay.
Yes, we have a limited question period time now. I believe it is 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. And another thing to discuss, I think, is whether we wish to continue our current system of having a dedicated committee of the whole meeting from 6 till 7 on the second meeting of the month, or whether we would like to eliminate the committee of the whole meeting and have delegations within our agenda as is already provided for. It would be the same thing. We would have a limit. I think it's suggested here no more than 2 delegations, no more than 10 minutes each, unless council agrees to give them more time. And that would include any questions and answers, that would include presentations, PowerPoint slides, etc. Again, I'm not sure about Clinton, but I know that Cache Creek, they have their delegations for the meeting. So. All right, so are we supposed to be making any record of these, or you're making records of all these suggestions?
So, Your Worship, changes to a draft bylaw are typically made between second and third reading. So first reading is really discussion only. You won't be voting on these changes, the things you've discussed. You've discussed them just so that the rest of council can take them home and mull over them, decide whether you like that or you thought of something else that changes it, or so on.
So I think the thing to do is just go home and go over it again, think about what's been discussed, and think of, I like this, I wasn't so sure about that, I need more information about this one. Or, looking through it again, you might come across something and go, oh, so, and then we can bring the list to the next meeting and then start formalizing. Is comfortable with that process? Is it sort of a first pass?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And if we do have things, they should be directed to whom and well before the, or is it just a broad conversation in the moment?
For the second reading?
Yeah.
Second reading, I think that it would probably be helpful to have them prepared in advance rather than just throwing them onto the table.
Yeah.
So that then, if you have 3 things that you would like to change, for example, in what you see before you now, write down what it is you'd like to see changed and why, and then we can discuss each point and come to a consensus. We can come to a consensus. You're both smiling at each other. We will come to a consensus. But no, thank you, Alicia, Dick, I know that you've done a lot of work going through looking at, I have no idea how many different procedures bylaws. Did they all blur together at one point? Yes. But thank you very much. I think this is a great first start, or first stab at it, and very clear, and thank you. Is there any further discussion on the draft in front of you? No? All right. Well, the motion on the floor is to give first reading in title only to draft bylaw number 834/2020. All those in favor? Or did you have another? Okay, all those in, you're jumping down now. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you very much. All these people getting ahead of themselves. All right, so we have some council reports, pages 58 to 60. Oh, did I forget one? Oh. Whoops, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I'm getting ahead of myself. Catching. 56. CFO Bella, yes, staff report. We have the council remuneration report. What is council's pleasure for this? I'd like to move the recommendation that council approve the council remuneration report for 2019 as presented. Councillor Anstead, second, thank you. Any discussion on it? No? On the question, then all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we move on to council and committee reports. So we've got our report from Mayor Roden, Councillor Anstead, Councillor Toohey. So does anyone have any questions on my report? Oh, yours, there's one there too? Oh, there we go. Councillor Anderson, Roden, Anstead, and Toohey. Any questions on any of the reports here?
I believe Councillor Anstead had
Yes.
a notice of motion from last time that he wanted to speak to this time.
Yep, just asking if anyone had any questions on any of the other reports? No, thank you everyone for getting them in. And yes, Councillor Anstead does have a notice of motion about revisiting the burning bylaw. So Councillor Anstead, you wish to speak to this?
Yes. I'm proposing that we reconsider rewriting or amending the existing bylaws we have for our burning bylaw number 811, 2017. Our current bylaw doesn't allow for the burning of backyard waste in our village. So with the changes to the landfill and transfer station, it's going to be difficult for some residents to dispose of their backyard waste. Even though the village provides a spring and fall cleanup days, it's still challenging to dispose of yard waste due to the new transfer station restrictions, and the new charges have increased the village cost for this service substantially. As of 2020 this year, the PNRD will be charging for all yard waste removal, or all yard waste that comes into the facilities. So before, we used to be able to take our yard waste up to the facility for free. Now, as of this year, we're gonna have to be paying for stuff like that. And that means the villages, our cleanup that we do, that cost is gonna go up tremendously, because I'm not sure how they're working it, if it's gonna be charged by the weight or if it's gonna be charged by a load, but from what I've heard, it's gonna be a weight thing, for yard waste.
That's a new one.
Yeah. So that's gonna impact a lot of our residents greatly in that we've got a lot of seniors in the area, we have a lot of low-income families and people with disabilities in the area that can't really use that service. So having our burning bylaw restructured to allow the burning of backyard waste, I think would be a great benefit to a lot of the community members here as well. And not only that, but it'd be a great thing for the taxpayers as well. Just in our employee time alone, we're paying over $5,000 for our cleanup every year. That's a huge cost. That's $5,000 that can be going somewhere else. On a fire aspect, with the way the burning bylaw is written right now, our fire department can only burn with the village's permission. The fire department are firemen, and they've got a job to do, so we should be letting them guys do their jobs. We have a lot of spaces in the area that can be fire smarted. We can't fire smart nothing without having to seek permission for stuff, and that stuff that we shouldn't have to seek permission for. Speaking from a fire side. There's also a lot of homes in the area that would benefit with the backyard burning. We have a lot of our homes up along the mesa that for years and years and years, they've been dumping their compost over the bank. Well, that's just impacting our fire load even more. You're adding fuel to the fire, is what you're doing essentially. So I feel that it would be a benefit for this council to look at rewriting or amending the burning bylaw to allow backyard burning at certain times during the year with strict guidelines to control hazards and that. There'll be things in place like fire size, things like that, and also other recommendations from the fire chief as well.
Thank you. Any comments? Questions? So I'll jump in. You say certain times of the year. Did you have a certain time frame?
So from when I was a child growing up out here, and I can remember that we used to have a 2-week span in the spring, and then there was a 2-week span in the fall as well. That would allow for burning of yard waste and other combustibles in your yard, within reason, like no chemicals, no fuels and stuff like that. So it would allow for a 2-week in the spring and a 2-week in the fall to pretty much around the time where we do our spring cleanups and that, right? So we're gonna get a lot of that load for the public works group.
And do you envision people having to get a permit?
Absolutely. Another thing in here, and that will be going back to the old permitting ways. How that's gonna all, like fees and all that, how that'll all work out will have to be decided down the road. But yes, I remember in my childhood and out here, in order to do a burning in the area, we had to apply for a permit at the, actually back then it was at the fire hall. It wasn't even at the village office. We could go, you could get a hold of Bill Campbell, the fire chief in town, and you could get your permit for the, for burning, for within that allotment of time.
Any, Councilor Downs?
These would be burning barrels, is that correct, or would it be?
Yeah, it'd be a burning barrel, yeah, be a yard waste fire barrel, yeah.
Would that be the only route of the burning?
It's the safest route,
Yeah.
right? We've gotta have, in order to go through this, I think we have to go about it the safest way possible. Allowing people just to throw stuff into the pile of their yard and light it up is definitely not a safe way to go. So I would like to see like, authorized burn barrels, stuff like that.
Would the burning barrels be at the owner's expense, or?
Yes.
Okay. Would they be inspected?
That's stuff that I have to be worked
Yeah.
on, and I had to ask a few more questions for fire
Yeah.
chief in regards to that.
Things come on.
On liability and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Counselor Anderson?
And also what about smoke? Like what, because that could be wafting into the neighbor's open
Yeah.
window and.
That's all gonna be pertinent to your weather conditions and that as well, right? Like, if you're experiencing high winds on the day that allows for burning, then that's just a given, there's no burning to be in place on a high wind day, or you can be subject to fines.
CONs?
Your worship, what we would probably do if council were to approve looking at changes to the burning bylaw, we would take that away as staff. We would consult with the fire chief, you know, in regards to what works for the fire chief. We would consult with Public Works. I know that Mr. Benowith has lots of years of experience with the village, and so he's already been signaling a few changes to me that he thinks would be beneficial or might cause concern. So what we would do is we would incorporate what we have heard and then incorporate the improvements that we see from those positions of expertise, and then bring it back to council for consideration.
Just as a note from my own personal experience regarding the smoke, yes, there is the potential for people with respiratory issues, certainly, and we've seen that the past summers of 2017 and 18. The other aspect I think to consider with the smoke, and it's a very real concern for me, is reminding people of 2017. And I'm just throwing that out there for consideration. It is just, I know when people hear helicopters, it startles them, some people, and it takes them back to 2017. I think we have to be cognizant of that in any discussion about this question, just that it is going to be sensitive to some people for reasons that it might not have been sensitive the last time this was discussed before council. Councillor Davenport.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just inquiring about any of the TNRD meetings that you've had about the transfer station, and if there's any updates on that, just because they do go sort of hand in hand to get an idea of where we're headed in terms of how long that process would take, because this is the way to deal with that, the effect of garbage and recycling going into the landfill, because we all know what's happening. So I just wondered if you had heard anything.
Thank you. Nothing definite. I know that some engineering studies have been undertaken at a property adjacent to Highway 1, not at Boston Flats. The indications I've had from the TNRD Environmental Services staff are that once the engineering is done and they are able to start with work, you're probably looking at 4 to 6 months before the Eco Depot is complete, and your current thoughts, Councillor Anstead, it will be by weight once the new Eco Depot is open.
So, okay, so.
The hope is that it will be open in 2020.
2020, right.
The hope.
The hope.
Any further, just Councillor Toomey.
I know this, when this was happening, it was so controversial. And, there's so many people that have the pros and the cons. So it definitely is something that's gonna take a lot of thought. Because I know there were people that were just adamant about not having any smoke in the community. But on the other hand, the safety of having the fuel out there and not getting cleaned up is definitely a concern. So I think it's definitely has to be a balance of being able to get rid of that fuel load and keep the other people happy too.
Thank you. Councillor Anson.
The way I see it, we can deal with a little bit of smoke, or we can deal with a whole bunch of smoke at one time, and a lot of damage at one time too. So it's and I definitely hear what you're saying with the pros and cons now, but when it comes down to life matters, right?
And the landscape, no pun intended, has changed since the last time this question was visited. The events of 2017, of course, and even provincially, there has been, I think, a shift in the approach to controlled burns. There used to be a good many people who were adamantly opposed to BC Wildfire Service doing any controlled burns because of the smoke, as you say, a little bit of smoke. And I think since the fire seasons of 2017-18, people have come around to better to have a little bit of smoke from a controlled burn than a lot of smoke from an out of control.
Just look at the fires and that. We don't live in a forested area, we live in a desert. You guys can see how fast that fire traveled 11 kilometers in 25 minutes. In dry tinder, like it's unreal. Like, so just because we're not in a forested area like Logan Lake or whatever like that up there, it doesn't mean we're out of the woods and that with it. No pun intended.
Thank you for adding that. All right. Did you have a motion prepared, Councillor Anstett?
I didn't. Well, yeah, I would like council to consider rewriting or amending the existing Village of Ashcroft outdoor burning bylaw,
Okay.
number 811.
So direct staff to look into the burning bylaw and bring recommendations back to council.
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Toohey, thank you. All right. No further discussion? No, on the question then, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you all. And so, no further questions on any of the other reports. Resolutions released from closed meeting, we have none. And so we move on to question period. Questions from the press?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. It was me that you chose, right?
Yes.
I wasn't sure if there was someone behind me. I just wanted to offer, if I may, about the question of council procedures and potentially changing question period. Just from personal experience, I've been covering council meetings in Clinton since before they moved to the change. It used to be how you guys are now, which I think is better, much better. I won't go into a tangent, but much better. For the last year or so, how long it's been, they've had the question period at the front. And I just have to say that almost every meeting I attend, the RCMP are called because of that. And it's unnecessary, it's a waste of their time, and I just think that those council meetings have gone just very not well since that happened. It's a struggle for the people in the gallery, it's a struggle for the people on council, and there is so much crosstalk that it's painful because people are constantly feeling like they want to say something but they cannot because question period happened at the start. And usually I would say the RCMP are called within those first 5 minutes of that question period because the mayor is cutting off the person in question and they just keep doing it to each other. It's awful. So please, if you can keep it this way, please do. I've got anxiety thinking about you changing. That's all.
Thank you very much. I did note that the RCMP had been called to the most recent Clinton council meeting.
It's almost every time. And sometimes I just don't mention it because it's really for no reason. It's just because they can't control the crosstalk that has developed as a result of that being changed. It's just, they can't figure it out. I don't know what to say, but they can't.
Okay.
It's awful.
Thank you for the input there. And I saw Gareth Smart at the back and then Gloria Mertens.
Just to carry on with that topic, what about a 7.5 split? So 7.5.
Not at the end. I'd have to look and see if that's done anywhere else, and I'd have my preliminary idea would be that no.
You could be the first.
The ground breaks. Well, we discussed earlier, you don't necessarily want to be the first.
No, he just wants everybody to be happy.
All right, Gloria Mertens.
And again, with the procedural bylaw, I agree with Gareth. I think it doesn't necessarily mean you can't have it at the front and the end, and it doesn't have to be 7.5. It could be 10 minutes at the front, 10 minutes at the end, and at the front it would be more input, and at the end it would be questions. But I have some other concerns that I'd like council to follow along and just kind of circle and just so you have this information in case you haven't read the changes. I do find it unusual that the procedural bylaw is being changed when it was just changed May of 2018, and it was a comprehensive one done by our former CAO. Very well done, I thought. Most of the information is from the community charter or Robert's Rules of Order. They're very little. What is changed is section 90, which deals with the meetings, the time and location of meetings and how the public is involved. So that's where I'd like just council to pay a couple attention to a couple of things. On page 12, what I did is I looked at the bylaw as it exists now and the bylaw as it's going to change.
Sorry, not page 12. Not page 12. Page 12 is Corey Gallant for the barn dance.
Oh, okay, I've just got the bylaw in front of me that I've run off because, of course, I don't
If you could
have it.
possibly give us the section and subsection?
Time and location of meetings, section 21.
Okay.
In the former one, they didn't say municipal hall, they said council chambers in the village office, and I think that's a little bit more explicit. I kind of like that rather than municipal hall because it just sounds better. Section 2.2, I noticed that you've changed the months, so you have one in July and August as it is now, and now you're only going to have one in September and one in December. And so that's one less meeting for open to the public because of September, and that also impacts all of your policies. You're going
Sorry, just as a clarification, for the 5 years I've been on council, we have only had one in September and one in December. December because of the Christmas holidays and the office closing, and September because of UBCM.
Well, I don't know that you had 3 or 4 this year because you had special meetings in September. But December, yes.
This is for regular council meetings. So regular council meetings, we've always only had one in September and December.
Okay, it doesn't say that in the other bylaw. I'm just pointing out the changes that are in the other bylaw versus this one. So 2D, you say adjourned at 10 p.m. and the other one says 11, so there's a little bit more leeway there. On page 13, there is no mention of the electronic meetings. I think that's good to have that information in there, what Councillor Anderson mentioned. In section 23, the notice of council meetings, there's nothing about it says 72 hours in the other bylaw, and here it just says as soon as possible to post it. Post that there's a regular council meeting as soon as possible. And my concern about the public notice posting place, I've said this before, you have it outside the office here. The office is open from 8 till 4:30, and then the door's locked and nobody can come in there. So it's really it's not even 24 hours that people can go up and take a look at what's on the board. So that's a concern. Either put that posting board outside of the building. I mean, people can't get up there anyway. There's elderly people that can't get up to that posting board. It just isn't a very good display board for people to access.
Just to point out, this is something that will almost certainly be addressed in the communication survey and our overhaul of communications as to where people would find it most advantageous to have regular notices and special notices. So this is something that we do have under consideration.
I do hope you keep the committee of the whole from 6 to 7. I think that's good. It gives people a little bit more time for the presentations. And if you only have 2 presentations at 10 minutes each, there's always overruns. I've come in here lots of times when with committee of the whole it's gone over, and your meetings will get extremely long otherwise. I think having a separate committee of the whole meeting is a good idea.
Just to speak to that, if I may, yes, I may, I'm the chair. Right now, we have 1 hour once a month for committee of the whole meeting, and in September and December, we do not have committee of the whole meetings because it's the second meeting of the month, which is the one which we don't have. So this is all, of course, provisional. The 10 minutes, only 2, that could be subject to change. By looking at it, if you, for example, said 15 minutes and you increased it from 2 to 3, say, for one of the meetings, now you're giving people an opportunity at both meetings in the month, if there are 2, and in September and December, giving them an opportunity to appear as a delegation at the first meeting of the month on the second Monday. So there's pros and cons to everything.
There is. The agenda, you give council members say that they have to have 72 hours notice before the agenda items have to be given. I think that's unfair, even though that's what is in there right now. I think councillors should have at least till Thursday, so you have at least one day where it's a regular work day that you can ask questions and so forth.
I'm sorry, whereabouts are you on?
I'm on the agenda number page, section 31. So
30, okay, hold on
it says,
just a minute.
corporate officer must make the agenda available to members of council on or before the Friday afternoon. And that's cutting it close for you guys. I mean, that's what's in there right now, but I think it's cutting close. The next item, you're going to give it to the public on Monday morning. That gives the public a couple of hours to look at the entire agenda package. You don't give agenda packages out anymore, so when they come in here, they can't even see the agenda in front of them. So it's really a little bit harsh on the public to be prepared for questions when they're getting it only on the Monday morning of the meeting. In that section as well, the agenda, in the other bylaw, there's no indication when items should be given to the clerk. And the other bylaw, it says it should be in by 3:30 of Tuesday, and I think you should probably have that so that your councillors know when they have to have input in. And the very last thing is the definition. You did mention 10 minutes for public input, and right now it's 15 minutes, just to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the bylaw, committee of the whole is actually defined as the chance for dialogue to occur between delegates and the public in the gallery with council. That is in your bylaw right now. So when you did not acknowledge one of the members of the public tonight, I really thought that was ingenuous, because right now, committee of the whole means people from the public gallery are allowed or should be allowed to speak according to your procedural bylaw right now. Now, the one that you are adopting, that is totally different. You will not welcome open dialogue from the public in the gallery.
What, for committee of the whole item?
For committee of the whole, yes.
As with, in the past, before there was a question period, anyone who has questions for people who've come to present as a delegation, whether it's Dawson, whether it's Sun Country, whoever, is able to go and speak with them privately after they've given their presentation.
Yes, but not during committee of the whole.
No. Okay, we've got about 4.5 minutes left for question period. Mr. Smart.
I got two quick ones here.
Okay.
How much is a typical arena rental?
That's an excellent question. I don't have the answer to that. CFO Bala. CFO Bala will.
I haven't memorized the fees and charges bylaw, but we had it up earlier.
Phone tomorrow.
But I'll have to look.
So while he's looking it up, what's your second question?
Second question is, when you're looking to do a meeting with the Ashcroft District Curling Club, is that something you're going to ask them to be a delegation on, or are you going to have a closed meeting with them or a public meeting with them?
That would be a private meeting between us and the curling.
Okay.
Can I do one?
You certainly may.
I know you're talking about a level 2 charger. I'm gonna buy a EV, it's on order.
Wow.
When I'm driving down the highway and it says you have a level 2 here and a level 3 in Cache Creek, so I can stop for 5 hours or 4 hours to charge mine, or I can stop for an hour and charge mine. Which restaurant's gonna get my business?
We have applied at least twice for funding. The level 3 charging stations are about $115,000 to $125,000. The level 2 charging stations are approximately $12,000 to $15,000 each. So at this time, without grant funding for a level 3 station, fast charging station, we are unable to proceed. We are, I believe, going to keep trying, because when we built the water treatment plant, it has 3-phase power. We own the land above it, which is they were using for their office when Maple Grinders was here. We have that all ready to go. When we get approved for a level 3 station, it's going right there. So we're trying. We are trying, and I understand that I'm 6 hours here. No, but having an electric vehicle charging station here is better than having none.
I can use that one instead of my one at home.
Pardon me?
I can use that one instead of the one I have at home.
Or you can rent out yours, yeah, there you go. And then hence my question earlier to Foreman Benowith about the possibility that one day down the road, we will be going to electric vehicles here. You know, I guess seeing from what I know of EVs, that we could plug one in at the Public Works yard, for example, if we ever got a station up there, it charges overnight. We don't need a fast charge station for that. So. Any other, sorry.
Sorry, Your Worship, just to answer the question on fees and charges, I pulled up the bylaw, so it depends on, first on the, whether it's a infant, child, youth, adult, family, so there are different charges for each. Minor use, or use of ice or use of dry floor, different charge categories, but adult use of ice rentals are $100. I just picked one cost category. So.
Okay, and that's $100 per day?
No, per hour.
Per hour?
For ice. That's
Okay.
for the ice hockey games.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes?
I'm wondering, in the grant writing, if there was a summary report for last year, because I had asked about if there was one or not for last year, and it was supposed to come out this year, so is there
That
one?
will be on its way, but these things, yeah, take time. The grant writer, I'm assuming, is going to be preparing it in conjunction with NDIT, and once they have finalized that, then we will get a copy.
And the train cessation that you mentioned in the budget, was that for crossings, is that going ahead then?
We DCO'd it?
Actually, I was contacted today from WSB that they will be arriving in Ashcroft this week or next week to do their site investigation.
Okay. Thank you. Got time for one more question? No? All right then, there is no closed meeting tonight, so I move that we adjourn this regular meeting of Ashcroft Council. Councillor Anderson, thank you. On the question, all those in favor? Opposed?
I end up too soon.
Opposed?